Good afternoon and welcome to the Fargo Human Relations Commission. This is our July 16th meeting. Again, I will call the meeting to order and begin with introductions. I'm Barry Nelson. I'm chair of the Fargo Human Relations Commission.
Matora Lear, the vice chair.
Please.
Cody Severson, member. Or is that what we're doing?
Cheryl Safel, member.
Adam Martin, member.
Amida Dakane, member.
And I believe we have Letitia on the phone. Would you introduce Letitia?
We don't have her on the phone, Commissioner.
Oh, okay. Well, we do have quorum. And then Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and then could we have our staff introduce themselves as well?
Tia Braseth, Planning.
Nicole Crutchfield, Planning.
Karen Flum, planning.
Miranda Wolf, Planning.
Okay.
And Caitlin Christie from
Caitlin.
Planning.
Kathleen, thank you. All right. We have before us, and I should mention, we do have a sign-in sheet in the back if anybody wishes to present to the commission during public comment. We appreciate if you would sign in and give us your contact information. It's not a requirement. If you do choose to speak and you haven't signed in, that's okay as well. We're just trying to monitor the time that we have today. We have before us the agenda. There's copies of that in the back of the room. I am going to myself amend the agenda. I'm going to add number 9. I guess I would bump the other items down, but add number 9. We have a presentation by Jim Shaw today in terms of the name of Woodrow Wilson High School. So add that to number 9. And with that amendment, I'm asking for approval of the agenda by the commission. Any motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Cheryl.
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in approval of the amended agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We also have written minutes in our packet from our June meeting, which was our first in-person meeting since the coronavirus struck. If you've had a chance to look at the minutes, I'm asking for a motion to approve the minutes from our June meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Matur, thank you.
Seconded.
Cody, thank you. All those in favor of the written minutes indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item on our agenda is just a reflection back on our June meeting, our June 18th meeting, which we dedicated most of that time to public comment at that time. Very much appreciated the number of people that took time out of their day to come with us that day. We had over a dozen comments that were either presented in person or by phone and by email, and so we're very appreciative of that. We recognize that we had individuals at that meeting who represented newly formed organizations, I understand, in our community, Black Lives Matter and One Fargo. We appreciate that, but we also recognize there were individuals in the audience who spoke on their own behalf, and we want to reflect that as well, that we are speaking with individuals and organizations as we go forward. The discussion was rich. Again, I appreciate the input that we received and want to assure that that discussion prompted a large number of conversations going forward, conversations here at City Hall and elsewhere. I've had the opportunity to participate in a number of conversations that have included the mayor, at times didn't include the mayor. We've had law enforcement at those conversations. Commissioner Strand has been there, and members of both Black Lives Matter and One Fargo have been a part of that. And it's been a very, I think the term used at times, it's been productive and frank conversations. I think people have come with best interest, with a commitment to community, and that really was reflected in the honest conversation that's taking place. At times sometimes there's disagreement, but that disagreement is presented so that we can work through to resolution. I think particularly one thing that stood out for me, we looked at the issues that not only were brought up in June, but also were brought up in previous talking points that were presented. So there's been a lot of conversation on what kind of training particularly is needed for not only law enforcement, but other parts of our city. And, you know, I think there's a lot of conversation as what does that training look like? How much time, when, what's good timing? And I think that's a good conversation that we will continue until we land in a place that we are all comfortable that people who are in law enforcement and who work for the city and who work in our city are in fact better able to deal with all people in our community. Good timing with the conversation that's come up many times. One of the recommendations or requests was for new equipment for law enforcement, particularly body cams. We were told by both the mayor and law enforcement and Commissioner Strand that this is the budgeting process. So rather than having to perhaps have a conversation after the budget's been set, this is a really good time for this to be discussed and added to the budget. I personally am appreciative of the fact that Commissioner Strand and I were invited by Officer Vinson and Vince Kempf to visit with them. We spent 2 hours with them talking about the kinds of things that are happening with law enforcement. It's a conversation that I was very appreciative. I've learned lots of things there. And our challenge is to figure out how these conversations can become broadened and go forth in the community. I think I am reminded, particularly as a white person of privilege, that this is not a problem to be solved solely by our BIPOC community. That as privileged white people, we have to be equally committed to make the transformative changes needed to make this a community that's more equitable and inclusive. So this is not upon the backs of a certain group of individuals. It is all our responsibility to do this. So I think the other thing is we are starting to look at identifying what the issues are. Each one has its own set of actions that will need to be happening going forward. So we'll be working on organizing around committees and subgroups, be working within the community. This is not an issue that just one group will be working on. It needs to be very, very inclusive. So please watch for those. We appreciate those who gave us your contact information. It helps us keep you involved in the process as we go forward. So those are my reflections. Anyone else that wishes to? Hearing that, I should mention too, we have a pretty heavy agenda today. We're on a strict time frame. We need to vacate the room at 1 o'clock sharp because the committee on the selection of the next police chief is going to be meeting after us. So we need to clear the building really quickly. So I'll be moving us along as quickly as we can. The next item on our agenda is, one of the things that came out of the conversation was a statement of intent in agreement. We are one, which is, I'm getting used to the name. And maybe they'll help us clarify with that. But I'm going to call on Wes and Rochelle, if you would be willing to introduce the letter of the statement of intent and agreement that has been discussed with the city. If you would like to just go to the podium and reintroduce yourself, and I'm going to let you introduce the statement that is in our packet. We do have it before us. So welcome, thanks.
Welcome. I'm Rochelle Boa, and
I'm Wes Philome. So basically, the statement of intent is something that the city kind of drafted and One Fargo had input on. Just I guess, committing to having our leaders meet on a consistent basis. We understand that change is not going to come overnight. It's going to take time, and it's going to take dedication. It's going to take a little bit of patience and hard work. And so the statement of intent is kind of a signatory thing that's being done or drafted to say that we're going to meet and we're going to have dialogue, and we're going to work towards creating a more inclusive community here in Fargo, West Fargo, and also in Moorhead as well.
And it's also showing accountability on both parties. We have made our community aware that we're working with the city and to hold us reliable and hold the city reliable. So if they could see something that shows that this is not another time where we're saying we're working on tangible change, but physically having documentation showing the progression and eagerness of getting these changes done collectively as a united community is our whole intention about this.
Thank you. It's referenced as We Are One. Can you talk about the name, We Are One?
So We Are One is kind of a model that One Fargo has adopted. It ties into the name of One Fargo as well. It's saying, kind of based off of your comments earlier, that this is not just on the BIPOC community to create an inclusive community. This is the entire community of Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo coming together. So instead of just saying One Fargo, we're saying one community. We are one community that's going to come together, that's going to work hard to create the change that's needed here, because it really is going to take all of our efforts, seeing how much hate and division that spreads through the underbellies of the community currently.
Great. Questions from the commissioners? Well, we've had a chance to observe, to look through the agreement. The request for us, or the intent would be, is that we would vote and approve this, and then this would be forwarded to the Fargo City Commission for their ultimate consideration and approval. So I am looking for a motion to approve the statement of intent and agreement.
Motion
Move
for
that.
Mature, thank you.
I second.
Second, Hamida, thank you. Any further discussion?
Thank you all for putting this together and for the time that you've taken to actually to do this. And it looks fantastic, and I'm really excited to bring this forward.
I think I kind of like the name too, because One Fargo kind of feel like just the Fargo, not including West Fargo and Moorheads. And I think this is like a giant step into making the region a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a follow-up question, but my question maybe will go to Barry Nelson. On the process of selecting the committee, were you in communication with One Fargo and Black Lives Matter?
The conversations that have proceeded out of the our last meeting has been both with Black Lives Matter and One Fargo. But your question is specific, that was Black Lives Matter included in this conversation with
My
the?
question is specifically when the selection of the committee that will select the chief police was being appointed, were these groups invited in that table to discuss who in the community will be part of this conversation?
No.
We was not, we can answer that. We was not, and we did make that clear on several different occasions that if the biggest awareness is the minority community feeling protected and included in everything, being that Black Lives Matter and One Fargo have stood strongly to talk about this and have been pushing every effort to put this as a highlighted of importance. For them to have a committee and not include neither one of these groups who have come out and spoke so strongly about it, just actually shows a place in time where we're still in a stuck moment. So no, to answer your question, neither one of the groups was, and I can't speak for Faith.
I can speak for Black Lives Matter, and no, we were not included in that as well. I can't speak for One Fargo, but for Black Lives Matter, no.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second for the statement of intent and agreement. All those in favor, or any other questions, comments?
Barry, that's what this is right here, what I'm reading?
Yes.
The statement?
Yeah.
And so you guys are asking for, like, probably the most important piece is the regular meetings?
Correct.
And transparency with reports?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, thanks. If we're ready for a vote, then all those in favor of approving the statement of intent and agreement indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So with this endorsement, Planning Department Development staff will bring the statement of intent agreement to the July 27th meeting of the Fargo City Commission. So it'll be heard before the full commission at that time.
Thank
Can
you.
I
Thank
add
you
one more
again for your
comment?
work on this.
Barry, sorry, can I add one more comment? Just on the reporting section, I would just really like to see going forward more like concrete timelines for when we expect reports from like all the collective entities coming together, because right now it states the good faith effort shall be used. And I would really like to see like even like monthly or quarterly reports or what have you being put into that.
So you're recommending a change to the agreement with more concrete dates in there?
Can we, is that a thing?
Well, I would imagine that if we do that, they gotta come back.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna vote yes on something that's not in front of me.
Sure.
No offense, so.
Okay, and then that's could be something we'll talk about once that is brought up.
So maybe like as is, still putting it forward, but still communication on like just concreting that.
Okay, noted.
So, and if the notes for our meeting could be reflecting that suggestion.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you. And again, just add, there's been an incredible amount of volunteer hours, and we stress volunteer hours of people working on this, so thank you for involvement in that. Our next item on the agenda is the Human Relations Commission work plan, and that is again in our packet. This was a plan that was probably 14 months in the making. We had an outside resource that helped facilitate the conversation about developing a work plan. The first time ever since 2000, when this commission was established, that we actually were developing a work plan. And the result is a three-part work plan that is in the packet. In the process of, and we were going to announce this, bring this before the City Commission, and bring it forward into the community at the time that the pandemic hit. So we've been sitting on this for almost 4 months now. I think the intent right now, today, what we're asking for is that the commission would approve the plan as it is written. The intent would be that this plan, though, would continue to encourage community input, and as we expand it going forward. The plan has been shared with both the Black Lives Matter group and the We Are One group, but we've not necessarily been very intentional about getting input there from this. But I think to stress the fact that even though we will be hopefully approving this plan today, it's not a in stone kind of thing that won't be reflective of input from the community. So I lend this to the commission, looking for both a motion and conversation on where we're at.
So Barry, I have a question about this. Is this work on progress, or this work is all done and completed?
This is going forward.
Okay.
This is setting our vision going forward, not what we have accomplished by any means.
I make the motion.
Cheryl, move that we approve. All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. Further conversation on the work plan. I'm just going to hold it up. This is what this looks like. It's got 3 parts to it. I know it's been a long time since we actually constructed this, so I had to read it through and think, did we say that? But I think it's particularly pertinent in light of where we are at in our community today, that these are in fact the priorities that we've established. Hearing no discussion, do I have a motion to, oh no, we've already done that. So all those in favor of the work plan going forward indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So again, this will be carried forward. One of the things we had discussed again right before the pandemic is that each one of us as commissioners would commit ourselves to one of the priority areas so that we will have identified, we don't have to be addressing every single part of the action plan together, but we would be prioritizing. So before the August meeting, staff are asking that you let them know which of the 3 and particularly specific concrete items that you would be interested in doing. And knowing this commission, you're going to do that. I know you're going to do that. I'm going to clarify again. Do we have Letitia on the phone yet? No. Shoot. Okay. She was intending to join us today. All right. So Human Relations Commission work plan is approved and it will be going forward for both publication, input, and dedication of commission time to it. We have 2 sponsorship requests in the packet. One is for Joy Fest. And again, that information is in front of you. Joy Fest is scheduled for July 25th. There's a description here as to what the event is about. And the contact person. Okay, I've just mixed everything up now. Faith Dixon is here to answer any questions that you might have. So consideration is a $1,000 request for Joy Fest on July 25th. I'm looking for a motion first, if you would indicate.
Can she introduce the?
Would you like to hear from Faith? Would you like to address the event coming up?
I can.
I'll hold the card up.
Thank you. Yes, so Faith for Hope is a nonprofit that I started in 2016. We are in collaboration with Frederick Edwards in putting on an event at Island Park. We know that COVID has kind of taken over our lives since March, so we kind of want to get everybody out to do just some community healing and loving on them and just having a good time. We have a list of bands, people that are coming out to do some poetry, art, resources for the community as far as entrepreneurship, tables that'll be out there, just to give the community some light in the midst of darkness. So we're so excited for this event, just of one of many that'll come from this one event. Hopefully we're gonna get some people in the dunk tank too as well. So we're asking you all for, I think it's $940 for that event, so.
Good. Questions for Faith? All right. Do we have a motion? Go ahead, Amita.
Faith, with asking people to come out and we see COVID numbers picking up in North Dakota, even though it's sliding and picking, what are the prevention measures you are taking to protect us as much as we want to be part of the joy? As a COVID survivor, I just want people to be safe. So,
yes, and the Dakota Medical Foundation, we're working with them as well, have donated masks to us as well as sanitizers. Children of Hope has 1,000 masks as well. So we understand that COVID is still out there and it's on the increase, but we're prepared for that as far as our tablings and how they're set up. the chairs that we'll be renting as well. We'll do the 6 feet distancing, it is outside, so we're hoping that we can cut down the spread of COVID by having people wear masks and following by the CDC guidelines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's Barry? So I have a question here for Barry here. So they're requesting 940. Don't we have a cap for 500? Or did that change?
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can speak to that. I think generally speaking, we have had caps at 500. I think given where we're at in this stage in the budget for this year, since so much of our activities and work have stopped, I don't know if it was a hard and fast rule. It was just guidance to manage our budget over the course of the year.
So no?
So no.
Okay, because my question was I was going to ask her if we don't come up with the whole amount, where you going to come up with the other. But
And
thank
so
you.
we do have the funds available then.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, there's only about 4,000 that has been spent with the budget. Most of it was for Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Thank you.
What do we have in the bud, like, how much do we have?
So Catlin was very generous and ran that report before we got here. So it's 12,692.
However, one of the exercises we haven't done this spring, earlier this year, was we would have done in March. Some of that money is capped for the MLK event, and so just recognize that MLK event costs about $10,000. Yeah.
So I'm hearing the message that this money is there, but don't go out and try to spend it.
Correct.
That's something really
Yeah,
appropriate.
without us having a larger opportunity to talk about your strategies over the rest of the year, given that we're already halfway through the year.
Faith, is this going to be an annual event?
It will be,
Okay,
along
so-
with others.
So we could probably count on you coming back here again for $940.
No, I have some generous donors that'll be putting it on for the following years to come.
Okay,
So this is a one-time thing.
remember that.
Yes, I will.
And the time and the location is?
July 25th from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Island Park. We will not be using the gazebo. That'll be used for some artwork from some of our local artists in town, but we'll be using some portion of the park. So we want to invite everybody out. It's going to be a fun family event. So thank you.
Great. So we're looking for a motion on this request of $940 for Joy Fest.
I motion to move it.
Thanks, Hamida.
I'll second.
Second, Adam. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the request for $940 for Joy Fest indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We have a second request in our packet. July is going to be a busy month. There is a request for a celebration of the Liberian Independence Day. The description is, as I mentioned, in your packet. The recipient organization name is United Liberian Association of North Dakota. They're describing an event that's going to be held at Johnson Park, not on top of Joy Fest. It will be happening leading out of Joy Fest. So, and Rochelle is here, and our other guests will be here to talk about that. And would you like to introduce it?
I'm Zulu. Okay, we were so proud and happy that last month we met with Commissioner Barrett when we went out in the Liberian community and distributed food. You know, he was there with us in the office, and we are also happy that Nicole was able to recommend us to people and organizations that could give a grant for that project. That's what matters in the community. So now we have July 26th program comes next weekend. We We are asking the Secretary of FACO to give us a donation of $1,000 to complement, our budget. Even though our budget is about $6,000, but we're asking you guys for under $1,000 as an assistance to our program and budget. And besides that, on that day, we're going to have the game between the adults and the youth, and also have the children program. And at the same time, again, the winner of the game will be playing the police force, hopefully from FACO, we're going to combine along with West FACO on that very day. Now, our community is growing, and we need to be able to interact with people within our own setting. So we believe that any program today that you do guys support will benefit our community very greatly.
Hello, everyone. So the purpose of us being here today is that the Liberian community has been hit as well with COVID, with a lot of our Liberians being essential workers and being laid off with their job. Usually the community, their self-host this program without any handouts. So with this year, what's going on is that because of the financial struggle within the community, we've partnered up with ULIN as One Fargo to go ahead and assist where we can, as well as put joy back onto the faces of the Liberian community. With that being said, we are aware of the present time and pandemic that we're facing right now. So we do have proper measures in place to go ahead and help along with that. We do have several different distancing. We have volunteers that will break up whatever that is more than 3 or more people gather around. It is a time where one of the biggest demographic of Africans that is here in the Fargo area is struggling. So to celebrate their Independence Day in such a way to bring the community. I know we talk about uniting and coming closer, and this is the perfect way to go ahead and do that, especially because the narrative of the Liberian community has been so tarnished in our local media that every time you see them is something tragic. So coming together with them and just knowing that community for yourself and just seeing how their interaction and how they celebrate that. I know July 4th is a big holiday here for the Americans, but understanding that we have various demographic here in the Fargo area that celebrate their Independence Day and just seeing how that looks is our main goal, but not forgetting that we're still in a pandemic. And like I said, we have several different measures to prevent anything that may happen, from walking around with the hand sanitizers to the masks to making sure people aren't too much in a close and congested area.
Questions?
Is it indoor or outdoor? And how
This-
many people are you expecting to be there?
This is not indoor, this is outdoor at the Johnson soccer field. So this is a game that they have every year on the same date, whether it's the 26th, which is the physical July 26th, or the 25th, depending on what day it falls on. The amount of people we're expecting shouldn't be more than 100 because of, I guess, the busyness and everyone's schedule and things like that. And it's a big celebration. So Minnesota have their own, and most people, because it's bigger in Minnesota, majority of people would just drive to Minnesota. So for us to do a free event where it is open to the public to get them out there is our goal.
Other questions? Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So, quick question. Is it normal for us to pass stuff when we don't have an attached budget? And I know we just walked through it, and I just want to make sure that, in the past that we've done this before, where we pass stuff that doesn't have all the paperwork. Have we done that? We have, okay.
But this is like in a couple days, I think.
This is literally next week's Saturday at 5, from 5 to 9. So I believe is 4 hours, 4 or 3 hours and a half.
One thing we have added, we have asked for people who receive grants from us to come back afterwards and tell us what happened so that we can kind of complete the loop and see that, in fact, what we funded was, I mean, it always has happened as according to what's been proposed, but it's nice for us to see the results of the
We could
monies.
definitely bring receipts if needed. We can bring pictures, so whatever that is necessary with the funds that's being given.
Yeah, no, I'm not making any accusations that I think money be used inappropriately. I just want to make sure that we're setting we have a standard, right? Like, so.
And maybe if I can add to Mr. Martin's comments, this is new for a lot of organizations to go through this sponsorship type process. And so I was just talking with Mr. Zulu, and he presented a memo to me just before the meeting was getting ready to start, talking about the amount of commitment their organization is providing for this event. And they're estimating a close, cost of about $6,000 for the entire event. And then their original request was about $2,500, and we went by guidance of, staff provided guidance that $1,000 is probably the max that staff would feel comfortable with in managing our budget and what's yet to come this year.
So staff feels comfortable with $1,000?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make
You
the
just
motion.
said that the budget, we had like $12,000, and then we just gave $940, and then MLK event is $10,000.
Does that get
Do we have more money coming into this, or?
Yeah, that brings up a larger, especially for Cody and Adam. I know sponsorships are particular. We don't see a lot of them come in front of the Human Relations Commission, especially this year. And so this might be new for some of you. As a larger discussion, as part of our strategic plan, we want to talk about sponsorships as a whole and what they mean for the community as a whole. And the Native American Commission also does sponsorships, and the Arts and Culture Commission does sponsorships. Each of those sponsorship programs are done in slightly different ways. And from a staff perspective and an administrative perspective, we would like to bring those three committees together to talk about how we can do the greatest good in the community as a whole, so that we can align some communication so it's clear for the public, and especially for nonprofit organizations or organizing groups who are maybe new to this, so we can provide clear guidance. So I will say right now the guidance is not very clear.
I would like to add to that the MLK budget, just so you know, because it straddles 2 different years generally. We have some of that 10,000 that goes to that, but like the whole 12,000 is bridging between 2 different budget years. So we wouldn't rely on all of that 10,000 to be used for that 12,000.
So we have a safety net, is what you're saying? Okay.
Yep, there's a little bit of wiggle room there.
Okay.
And you would stop us from overusing that.
Just keep voting.
Thank you. Motion.
I'll make a motion.
Cheryl, thank you.
I'll second it.
Mature, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the $1,000 to the Liberian Independence Day celebration indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Have a great celebration.
You guys too, and all is welcome as well.
And that is duly noted. We recognize that we're having a booth at both the Joy Fest and the Liberian Independence Day, and so we are invited to help staff the booth and be present with both groups. So we'll see you there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move into the next item. And I also understand we have a number of people that have indicated they would like to do public comments, so I'm going to be moving this along here. So my term as chair ended, actually, probably at the end of June, but we didn't quite get to that type of business. So We have election of officers going forward that needs to be done today. One of Rachel's last duties, she did so well being the nominating committee last year that she was the nominating committee this year. And so we're bringing forward two individuals who have been talked to and have indicated they would be interested or willing to serve in the capacity of chair and vice chair. And those individuals are our own Matur Alir, who was vice chair this year. And then Cody Severson has agreed to serve as vice chair as well. So those two individuals are being put forward as suggestions for the office, but I would look to see if there's any other nominations for the positions. I don't think I have to ask 3 times. So hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the appointment of Matur and Cody as officers for 2020 going forward?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Cheryl. Do we have a second? I don't suppose they can second themselves. Can I second? Do we have a second to the motion?
I just have a question. Was this discussed with everyone? I'm sure I get a call, but did Letitia and Adam, were you reached out about this? Okay. Then
Were you not?
I was. Just wanted to make sure the rest were. So I'll second.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Any further discussion?
Question. I talked to Cody about it a little bit prior, and I hope you're not offended by me putting you on the spot. I personally think that we should split the vote between and vote individually rather than both together.
All right, we can do that. So we'll take the motion. So I'm going to call for a motion initially for the chair of the Fargo Human Relations Commission, Matur. So is there a motion to elect him as chair?
I'll make the motion.
Cheryl?
Second.
Second? Okay, thanks, Cody. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, so now we have a motion to approve Cody Severson as vice chair for the Fargo Human Relations Commission. Could I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Cheryl?
I'll second it.
Matur, thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carried. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We also, so our added item today, I'm going to ask Jim Shaw if you would wish to come forward and present. We did share the column that you wrote on July 4th, and thank you for joining us today, Jim.
Thank you for inviting. I come here at a time of an inspiring and historic movement, a time when many are coming to grips with our nation's history of racism, a movement that has led to the removal of the Confederate flag from NASCAR races and as part of the Mississippi state flag, and now the NFL's Washington team has dropped the name Redskins. It has also in recent days led Virginia schools to drop the names of racists, as did the University of Southern California, as did Princeton University when it removed the name of Woodrow Wilson from its public policy school. Now, many other school districts and colleges are looking at the names of their schools associated with racists. Yes, Black Lives Matter. The sad part is that it took the senseless and shameful deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, and so many others to make this happen. Today, I am asking you to go on record as calling for the removal of the name of Woodrow Wilson from one of Fargo's public high schools. When Wilson was president, he cracked down on American freedoms. He arrested and imprisoned hundreds of thousands for exercising their rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. However, today I am here to talk about Woodrow Wilson, the ugly racist. You may ask, why are we focusing on Woodrow Wilson when there were so many other racists? The answer is, Wilson used his powers to take racism, hatred, and white supremacy to another level. When it comes to African Americans, Wilson's policies took away their rights, their hopes, their jobs, their dignity, and often their lives. When Wilson was president of Princeton University, he imposed a new policy in which the university would no longer admit African Americans. He also rescinded the admissions of previously admitted African Americans. When Wilson became president of the United States, Black Americans had been working side by side with white Americans for decades. Wilson changed that. He authorized segregation throughout the federal government. African Americans had to work in their own walled-off areas or cages and could no longer eat in the same lunchrooms or use the same bathrooms as their white co-workers. When African American leaders pleaded with Wilson to drop the segregation, Wilson refused and called segregation a great benefit. Beyond that, many African Americans were either fired or demoted from their federal jobs. Wilson himself personally fired dozens of African American workers and replaced them with white people. The word was sent out that Black Americans were no longer to be hired throughout the federal government or Washington, D.C. And just to make sure that no African Americans slipped through the cracks, people applying for federal jobs then had to submit a photo ID. Encouraged by Wilson's racist policies, white mobs went on the rampage against African Americans. The mobs beat Black Americans and torched or destroyed their businesses. Tragically, there were dozens of race riots in which thousands of innocent Black Americans were murdered by the white mobs. They were beaten, drowned, lynched, or shot to death. African American leaders begged Wilson to speak out against the mob violence. Shamefully, Wilson said nothing. After the Princeton Board of Trustees voted to remove Woodrow Wilson's name from its public policy school, Princeton President Christopher Eisgruber issued a statement. In that statement, he said, "The trustees concluded that Woodrow Wilson's racist thinking and policies make him an inappropriate namesake for a school or college whose scholars, students, and alumni must stand firmly against racism in all its forms." He went on to say, quote, "Wilson's segregationist policies make him an especially inappropriate namesake for a public policy school. Princeton is part of an America that has too often disregarded, ignored, or excused racism." End of quote. Those remarks also apply to Woodrow Wilson High School in Fargo. I dare say that 99% of the people in this community had no idea until recently of Wilson's despicable racist actions. Now that we know, I don't know how Fargo can keep the name of Woodrow Wilson on one of its high schools. Keeping the name of Woodrow Wilson is tantamount to endorsing his horrific record and actions. To me, having a school named after you is a huge honor. What do we tell students of color, or any students attending Woodrow Wilson, as to why the school is named after him? It's time to stand on the right side of history. The horrors Woodrow Wilson inflicted on African Americans cannot be overlooked any longer. I am asking you today to make a stand against this stain in our welcoming community. By doing so, you will be making a strong and powerful statement against bigotry, hatred, white supremacy, and racial violence, and in favor of racial justice, tolerance, and equality for all. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have, before Jim leaves the podium, any questions for Mr. Shaw?
Hello? Okay, good. I just wanted to go ahead and say thank you so much. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. And often to none, a lot of us, we talk about a little name change. What does that do? What could that do for us? Or a statue removed, what could that do for us? But let's keep in mind that that history may be good for a white man, but it reminds us of so many torture that we have faced in our generation. And every little things that's done is done in a big way. So to see that somebody that is white to stand up and point out all these facts about someone who impacted the African American race and suppressed them in such a way that is memorable up to now is something incredible. Me being a colored woman a Black woman sitting here and listening to. So I definitely want to go ahead and say thank you for that, and I applaud you. And going forward, this is something where I want to see you guys go ahead and do the right vote.
Thanks, Michelle.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, and there might be others that we're willing to. Did you want to reflect on the comments up to this point?
Kind of. I just want to make a comment that I'm fully in support of this, and as well, I hope we get to a point where we rename all the schools in the area that are based on oppressive figures, and not just Woodrow Wilson School. But thank you for the comments so far.
Black Lives Matter, we most definitely wanted to take this on as well. It was something that we were most definitely going to bring up in our meeting with the city as well. And Jim, I applaud you because you stole my whole speech right out of my mouth. So we do most definitely want to work on most definitely letting our voices be heard, because our children are attending that school and having nieces and nephews and others in our community. I want to make sure that our children are being raised knowing who people are and what they stand for. So that most definitely is something that Black Lives Matter, we do want to work on to make sure that his name is removed following Princeton. That was a huge accomplishment when I read that as well. So Black Lives Matter most definitely seconds that, and we will be talking about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith.
Hi, Rebecca Knutson with the Fargo Board of Education. We just had our elections Tuesday, so I'm serving now as the new president. And I just wanted to let the group know that we have a meeting June 23rd at 7:30 a.m. It's our governance committee meeting. That's the meeting that consists of 5 individuals from the board. One of the purposes of that group is to help decide items that move on to the agendas for our, what we call regular board meetings that are comprised of the 9 board members. And from what I understand, we are going to be discussing our policy regarding school naming. So I just wanted you to have that information for you to consider today and look forward to the result of your conversation. And then I'm not sure, I can't speak right now where that conversation is going to go, but what would happen is if at that governance committee meeting, if there is a discussion or basically a consensus among the 5 individuals that attend that meeting, to move the discussion on to the larger board level.
Thank you. Congratulations on being board chair. Another comment? Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Precious Dwyer. I'm happy to be back here today. And purposely, I'm here on behalf of the Native American community and the immigrant community. I know we all are fighting the epidemic in this country at this time. but I noticed that our community, the New American and immigrant community, are facing so many issues when it comes to sponsorship. We cannot stop the spread of the virus when we don't have the equipment and we don't have those materials or the finances that we can put in place to serve our own communities. It's so frustrating that when we do see some of those fundings out there for us to apply for that, the criteria for us getting those money is not something so easy. Most of the time, we get denied because we are not up to that task. And how can we get there is become the questions that we ask among ourselves within the community. Especially serving as a non-for-profit in my own community and working with women, children, and youth. We are there for them. We are there also for our community. It's frustrating to see that we have those good ideas or working with our own community to see how best we can stop the spread of COVID, but we don't have those funding. Most often when we apply, we will see we will only be qualified for little, and sometimes to even get it is not easy. So I came personally to let the city commissioner know that meeting with a lot of new American businesses like not-for-profit in my own community, that have been our own frustration. We are being stranded. Our office doors have been locked because of payment. And we talk among ourselves, we try. People come and show all the resources, apply to this place, you will get this grant, you will get this help, but it's just not working. We talk about the PPA loan, and some of us are not qualified because, like I said, we are new grassroots organization. We don't have people on payroll. How we apply for those funds? And as a non-for-profit, we also wait for a project period where you have to apply for certain grant and the projects have to be complete before you go back to those people again to ask for another funding. And due to the COVID-19, since January, most of those donors have been telling us we're not funding any activities within the community unless it's something related to COVID-19. And sometimes they want us to panel among ourselves. And I came personally to let you people know that we came from different communities. Africa is a continent. Each time they say, you go and partner with this person, I can go and partner with somebody from South Sudan. They don't understand my language. If I want to tell the people in my community about COVID-19, I have to speak my dialect. Sudanese people will not come and speak the dialect to Liberian community people for them to understand what they say about COVID-19. So we need the help, and that is what I'm here today. And I want the community to do something about those newly funded organizations that are not qualified for PPE loan or small business loan. Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. And I can add to that too, you know, and as part of this community, when the pandemic happened, most of the New American communities or the immigrant felt left out of all the preparedness, and we reach out to the city and the United Way of Cass and Clay County, and what they did is city did respond pretty well by partnering with the United Way, and they hire with the HR project where they hire about 6 different New American that are operating right now at the Somalian Community Development Center. Those are from different communities. One is from, those were hired based on the languages. They're trying to cover different languages, about 8 languages within the community. So that is operating. The other part is when I say we, some of our colleagues will reach out to the Commerce, and the grant is in the process. It's going to open July 31st. This is for the New American businesses because they felt left out. Most of them we have 54 New American businesses in Fargo, and only 3 of them were eligible for PP loans or grants. So Commerce and the state, North Dakota State, is putting a grant together of up to 50,000 that even nonprofit organization can apply. I have the information, and Nicole, if you want to add to that too.
So to get that information, you said talk to you or Nicole?
Yeah. I have been in communication. They sent out a message to meet with the New American communities, and it's not everyone that got the message. They reach out by email to the people that they know, but the state have been in communications, and we hold about 3 meetings, which were attended by, first one by 40 people within the New American communities. The second Zoom meeting was attended by 26. And that is they feeding us on what will actually be funded. And we in communication too with the city to even have allocated funding for the people that will be helping New American that don't speak or don't know how to write, or they have the business, and these people will just write the grant for them.
So if I could connect with Precious, if we could connect after this meeting, or I have your phone number, and we can call you and talk about what other gaps you're seeing, and so we can get connected with the state in more detail. So thank you for your comments. And then Barry, I know we're running right at the time.
Right.
Another option could be a date, since there's members of the public, if you wanted to do a date certain extent, a continuance of this meeting, we can do that too.
Okay.
If there's another date and time.
I would like to take action, however, on the request from Mr. Shaw, and then maybe we'll come back to that. We are pushing past our hour of ending. So we did have a request affirmed by our other speakers that we take action on the request to recommend to the Fargo Public Schools that they removed Woodrow Wilson as a name from high school, one of their facilities. So what would be your favor, Commissioner?
I think it's a great idea, and I wanted to thank Jim for coming up forward. We're into the Fargo School District. We are not here to change the history, but we trying to erase the negative part of history so we can start reconciliation and move forward as a one body, the one community. And I think I'm okay for it.
Would you make a motion?
I'll make a motion, yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Cheryl. Do we have any further discussion?
Just one question. I thought that, maybe I'm unfamiliar, I thought Woodrow School became Woodrow Apartments. I didn't realize it was still.
They're separate. There's Woodrow Apartments and Woodrow Wilson High School is part of the Agassiz building.
So they changed the Agassiz name.
High School, the alternative high school is Woodrow Wilson High School.
Okay. I went to school at Woodrow Wilson and got my GED there. I'm a little ashamed. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Amelia, did you have a comment?
No.
Or question? Okay.
The meeting on Monday, is that open to the public, or is that just closed to the governance committee at Fargo Public Schools? Sorry, thank you.
We have a little bit of a challenge at the district office due to space and COVID. So we have been holding our committee meetings via Zoom, and then our regular larger meetings in person, but not able to have individuals come to speak because the boardroom is so small. So what I would say is that meeting currently is a Zoom meeting. I believe those meetings are recorded. So not video recorded, but voice recorded, so individuals can, listen in on those or listen to the result of those meetings. But I would just say that if anyone has any comments or questions or suggestions to the board, you could contact me too if you want to visit outside of this room afterwards, but also all of our email addresses are available on the Fargo Public Schools website. There's a tab for board members, and so you could find our contact information, and certainly email us. That is commonplace, and we encourage that.
Thank you.
Recently, public schools, you guys hired a diversity director for the diversity and inclusion. Will that be also in the discussion? Will it be on the agenda to talk about that?
I'm not sure right now. I know that we're going to be discussing our policy, and then we'll see what goes from there. So I know you have to get out of this room here soon, too, for the next discussion that happens. But what I do know is that's on our agenda, and so then we'll see where the conversation goes from there. But it's the start of that dialogue.
Can we make a request that that should be also on the agenda? We need a further discussion because the only job in the schools, I often ask that how do we keep people of color in schools? And it's very disappointing. I'm not surprised, but highly disappointed the choices that people have made because people of color are highly qualified for that job, not only in the schools they went or the certain degrees or the PhD they have, but even living the life of being a person of color. So I don't know what the commission feel about it, but I personally would like to ask, as you are the president, so can we have that in the agenda to go ahead and discuss? I don't know, Barry, what do you feel about it?
We're at a time, this is a big topic and it has a great implication. And I think Nicole already suggested perhaps we set another time because I know we had people wish to have public comment and we're just up against having to clear the room. So I'm going to take that under advisement as well and maybe defer it to a conversation where we can have a full discussion about it.
And the meeting is set on July 23rd, so we need to get just saying, so many people are talking about this, and I feel like I'm sitting here to represent people, and this is something we need to discuss. So I'm not rushing anyone, but the earlier we get to discuss this, the better.
Okay. And I want to say certainly too, any comments or concerns or suggestions or questions that anyone in the public has that relates to the business of the Fargo School District, certainly feel free to contact the Fargo School District administration and board members directly, and we can also have dialogue.
Those board meetings are not open to the public? No. Ms. Knutson?
Yeah, our regular board meetings, they are open to the public. We're having some challenges right now due to COVID, and at that meeting on the 23rd, the governance committee meeting, actually at their meeting we have a workshop on the 30th, we're going to be talking about how we're going to be, what our process is going to be for moving forward, for helping to work to include the public greater in those meetings, because we realize that we have the space constraints. And so the room is so small that it basically fits the 9 board members being 6 feet apart and hardly anyone else. So we need to work harder to figure out how we can open up opportunities for that dialogue, whether that means meeting in a different location or not. Yeah, thank you.
But so can community members log into the Zoom meeting though?
No.
All right. I know we're going to be kicked out in a moment. So I'm going to ask for a vote on the motion that we submit to the Fargo School Board our recommendation that the name of Woodrow Wilson be removed from their high school. The motion was made and seconded. All those in favor of that motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, and we will have that forwarded to the Fargo School Board. Thank you again for all of you who spoke today.
We have a meeting today. We have a Fargo Police Chief Selection Committee meeting. Is that open to the public?
It is.
Okay. Is it here?
Yeah, it's at 2 p.m., right?
Yeah, it's at 2 p.m. in a couple minutes. Is it here?
Yeah, I think it's in this room.
Okay.
Okay. And just, I want to acknowledge, we had Senator Tim Mather, the motion, we made a motion in June that we would carry forward efforts to create Juneteenth as a holiday within the city. That's our jurisdiction to hold that. And at the same time, found out that Senator Tim Mathern with the North Dakota State Legislature is bringing a bill forward to the North Dakota Legislature to establish it as a state holiday as well. Do you want to just quickly address that, Tim, since you're here? I appreciate you being with us today. And we'll probably make this the final speaker, and then we will, you can advise us how we could schedule another follow-up meeting before the next meeting. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Human Relations Commission. Thank you for your service. The bill that I plan to introduce is a very simple bill. It reads, to commemorate the ending of slavery in the United States, the 19th of June of each year is designated and established as Juneteenth for the state of North Dakota. So that is the bill. I plan to have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans sponsoring the bill. And we go into legislative session in the first week in January. And between now and then, I will be looking for support for this measure. I'm going to give a copy of this to One Fargo and going to figure out how we can work together to make sure we develop the political support to get it passed. Thank you very much for your work, and I will leave a copy.
All right, thank you, Senator. And just talking, we also have been visiting with Black Lives Matter in terms, we want to make sure that the plans are appropriate and meets the suggestions of people within the community. So we will be working together.
Mr. Chairman, could I clarify, or could we I don't see a group of people out there waiting to come in. It's my understanding the next meeting's at 2 in here. Am I wrong on that?
I think they have to set up, and so we were asked by the administration office to do our best to conclude this meeting at 1 o'clock. I think we can give or take a few minutes.
That would be my sense.
Yeah.
It's really critically important we hear from the people who showed up today, if they have anything to say, because they're not even out in the hallway ready to set up.
Okay. Is that okay?
Sure.
I guess somebody, they'll come and
kick us out.
They'll kick us out when that time comes. So until that happens. So we did have people, thank you for clarifying. I guess I must be a rule follower, so I was feeling like it's
Barry, since we're on that topic about the next meeting, is there going to be a live feed for that meeting?
No.
If there's not, I would ask that we make a recommendation that there is.
We can find out. I don't. I think it'll be on Facebook.
Yeah, we're online. I just want to make sure the next meeting is too. Because I know you've got to go. It's an important meeting. So. You have to go.
We'll find out, Adam.
Okay.
All right, and then just the announcement that the committee requested a representative from Fargo Human Relations and one from the Native American Commission, in addition to the 4 members that were selected from the applications from the community at large. And Matur Alir is the representative from Human Relations Commission that will be seated on the Police Chief Selection Committee. Could we have the slide put up? This might be our notice. Could we have put the slide up also? We have new information about with the Supreme Court ruling, which essentially covers sexual orientation and gender identity under the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Subsequent to that, the North Dakota Labor and Human Rights Commissioner convened a group of attorneys who looked at our North Dakota human rights law and felt that the gender identity and sexual orientation also meets the criteria for that. So beginning June 15th, and this information that's up here is about the contact in North Dakota Labor and Human Rights Commission, because as of June 15th, individuals who feel they may have been discriminated against in employment, housing, public accommodation, and or public service because of their gender identity or sexual orientation are eligible now to file a complaint with the Department of Labor and Human Rights. This was an addition to the North Dakota law that was tried for 5 sessions and be accomplished through the legislature. But now through our labor commissioner, it's been accomplished with the stroke of a pen. So I don't think we really have recognized the magnitude of what has happened in our state because of the Supreme Court ruling. So please note this and spread this information to individuals, employers, and landlords, that this is now the law of the land. So thank you for that. The mayor's here. Does this mean we got to go?
No, we have till 1:30, so we have a few minutes.
I know
here.
that Mr. Lear has to leave, so
Yeah.
do you
Yeah,
wish?
It's okay.
So we have till 1:30 as well as, and we did confirm that meeting is open to the public as well as being broadcasted live on Facebook, or
Thank
like
you.
normally, so.
All right, so now we can invite people who wish to address the commission during the public comment period. So thanks for clarifying that. Faith, welcome back.
Yes, I know. I've just been up here all day today. So Black Lives Matter wants to most definitely bring to the Human Relations Committee the prone restraint. I don't know if many of you all know, it is a deadly police tactic which must be banned. It involves an officer sitting or laying on a person who is lying on their stomach, face down, or tends to be able to block their ability to breathe, which then results in positional asphyxiation. The history of this tactic shows that it has been used, and we all know that we saw that when George Floyd was laying down in Minneapolis, and that added to what caused him to be murdered on that day. So we are most definitely asking Fargo Police Department, as well as we know that they did ban the chokehold, which we do appreciate that, but we most definitely want to move to the prone position as well. Also, we are most definitely going to be working with Fargo Public Schools as well, with asking and questioning the inclusion diversity person that they did hire. We have a lot of questions to be answered, so we are asking the Human Relations Committee to please look into that as well, because it is something that the community does want answers on, and they have came to us and said, hey, we feel that that has been chosen unfairly, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Faith. Others that wish to address the commission?
I just want to piggyback off of what Faith kind of said. One Fargo wasn't really made aware of the vote that was going to happen. When we discussed at the last meeting with the mayor, John Strand, and some members of the Fargo Police Department, and they suggested banning chokeholds with the exception. It's clear by logic that without body cameras, if you look at the case of Elijah McClain, even with body cameras, that an officer could get into a situation where they use the chokehold, someone's killed, and they'd be able to justify it, especially without any video evidence. So we continue to push and ask that the chokehold be banned outright without any exceptions whatsoever. That has not happened yet, and so we're asking that the topic be brought right back up along with the prone restraint, but to have an absolute ban of chokeholds without any exceptions whatsoever, because it's been proven and shown with Elijah McClain that even with 3 officers having body cameras on and all of them having them knocked off somehow and not being able to document Elijah McClain being choked out 2 different times, that they won't be effective in this manner. So we're asking still for a complete ban on chokeholds.
Wes, while you're still there, would you clarify, you referenced chokeholds and then, and I've heard this reference before, prone restraint. Are we talking 2 different actions there?
Correct. Those are two different maneuvers. Chokehold is right around the neck. The prone restraint is where you have the individual down and multiple officers are pretty much piling on. There's another case in 2017 that's now coming back up where the prone restraint was used and killed another unarmed Black individual as well. And it's traumatic, it's widely used, and we do believe that that does also need to be banned. Fargo PD just recently, an officer was basically in a fight for his life with an individual this past week. They were able to detain him without choking him. They were able to detain him without using the prone restraint. So it proves that they do not need these methods in order to detain an individual. If they need better training, let's go ahead and add that to the budget if we can. But at this time, it's imperative that we make sure that we're not restricting people's rights to breathe.
Thank you. Do we have other members wishing to address the commission today?
I'd say that this is probably, it's been a very hot topic or whatever, because there's a lot of trauma that comes from it. And there's a lot of fear in the community on if we let something like this not be a part of what police can do, automatically people start assuming we're gonna take guns away soon. You know what I mean? Like there's red herring debate tactics that are happening with this. And so I personally think that, you know, along with what Wes is trying to do, I think we need to do a survey of when chokeholds have been used, who they've been used on, right? And if we start seeing some trends, right, then we can show it with logic, in fact, right? And I'm not saying that you're not doing that, Wes. What I'm saying is that storytelling goes so far, but we need numbers. I need to know. I know personally for me, I've been handcuffed, and while handcuffed, I've been maced and tased, right? And I don't know if that's a normal process. It happened in the Cass County Jail with Fargo Police Department, and it happened 10 years ago, and I never spoke about it because it was normal. Right? And now that a lot of this information is coming, you know, to social media and people are being more outspoken about their trauma and things that have happened, I'm starting to look back at some of the things that has happened to me and realizing that I should have never been tased and maced while I was restrained to a 6-point restraint chair. So I think that there needs to be some momentum. We need to get surveys done. We need to get numbers, and we need to start outlawing things that are creating hostile environments and not used as good de-escalation tools.
And one thing that I do like to add, about 4 years ago, maybe 3, I was stopped by Fargo PD on 420 and wasn't ticketed. I reached out to them to try and get them to confirm that I actually made an illegal turn. They would not do that. I started asking about what I could do to maybe get some data on stop by demographics. I don't think they were even collecting the data at that time. But I do believe that along with what you're saying, a study needs to be done to where we can kind of really start diving in. I think Osmundson's comments to the forum were very disturbing in how his racial bias impacted his policing. And so I'd like to see in the numbers, when we look at them, what does it say about our local law enforcement? Is there racial bias there? And if it's happening, what can we do to get that corrected, especially when in 36 minutes here we'll be discussing the selection of the next police chief. We need to make sure that he or she is fully aware of what we're dealing with and the changes that need to be made. And we've never actually looked at the numbers to see if there is a problem and how bad it is. So with that study, I would absolutely like for me and my people or Black Lives Matter to not have to pay the city for this information and dive through it ourselves. but for the city to be open and transparent and showing if we have a problem where people of color in this community are being stopped more often than others, why it's happening, and get it corrected if that's exactly what's going on. I can say myself, I've been stopped about 5 or 6 different times. I've been ticketed only once in the last 2 to 3 years alone. And so I'd like to see if there's something more there as well. So please, I'm compelling you guys to let us get some of those numbers on stopped by demographics.
Thank you. One thing I didn't mention is that the staff had put together, on the basis of the comments we've received at this time, a list of the concerns that have been raised, and then we're kind of neatly arrange them. I'm kind of an orderly person, but we have actions that will flow from each of those items, and certainly this one you're adding to a conversation that began last month and needs to be carried forward, both in terms of conversations within the community, within the commission, and with the law enforcement as well. So I wrote this down here as something that we would add as a action step for the process. Obviously, data is really important in knowing what we are dealing with. So gathering the data would be number one. Do we have any others that wish to address the commission? All right. Hearing none, is there any other information or good for the group? I forgot to mention Abdi Wali, one of our commissioners, was unable to be here with us today. We have had another death in the community. An elder within the Somali community passed away with COVID, and he's at her funeral. So our sympathies go to that family. I also maybe want to draw back because I heard Faith reference a same comment that you earlier mentioned, Hamida, the questions about the hiring of the equity director with the Fargo schools. So, correct? You referenced that too as well, Faith? Will you raise questions about that?
I did. We had a lot of complaints. People reached out to Black Lives Matter about that position. There were many people of color that applied for that position, and we're not even called back for an interview. We're nothing. So we want to know why. We want to know how the young lady that did get the position, that we're very happy that she was chosen, but we want to know why the other people of color were not chosen and not even offered an interview. So that does leave the community with a lot of questions on how you can teach diversity when there is lack of. So yes, I am. I have talked to Dr. Gandhi, and there is questions that have been raised with those in our community about that situation. So,
Faith, you know for a fact that there was people of color that applied and did not get an interview?
yes, I do. I have spoken with them, all of them. So far, we're waiting on more to come out. But yes, I have several that I have spoken with and met with and saw their application, and they are well qualified for the position.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any?
I will just follow up with your question. I personally know someone who has been working with the school almost 10 years, and she has all the qualification, she has masters and, name them, all the credentials and everything that you need for the position. And she did not even get an interview, not even the first round. So when people reach out and ask, how do we get people of color in schools? And then this kind of position come up, and then here we go, we choose the other way, and then we keep asking ourselves the same question, circle and circle. So it's time to take the action to break this circle.
Just to answer, Adam, your question about prones, there was a case study by Equip for Equality released in 2014 that noted there were 61 instances of death after the prone restraint. So they are looking more into it. There are more case studies being brought up. So over the last 10 years, that's what they came up with. So there were 61 deaths from using the prone restraints.
Thank you. I'm going to just ask the question as in terms of the commission. I recognize, Faith, you've already reached out to Dr. Gandhi and the questions that have been raised here. Was there any official action that you would suggest, Hamida or anybody else on the commission, about putting forth a statement from, or a question, I guess, on behalf of the Human Relations Commission? We don't have a formal relationship with the Fargo schools, but we are a public entity. So I'm raising the question. I mean, we could at least acknowledge that concerns are raised as to the hiring process and that there's lots of questions being raised. I know HR has to follow rules in terms of confidentiality, but any thoughts? I hate doing this kind of thing when we're crushed for time and don't have proper vetting on it, but so I'm looking for suggestions.
So the first suggestion is to write to the Fargo schools that the public has concern about this hiring and ask them to slow down the process or make it public and, advertise again for people of color to get the second chance to apply to. So that's what I wanted to do that personally, write an article.
Which you certainly could do.
But if I will get the support from the group, that will be good.
So are you making that as a motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second to Hamida's motion?
I second that.
Cody? Okay.
Yep.
You still have-
And it was certainly unfortunate that it looked like there was literally just weeks that happened in between the position being posted and it being closed. And so that in itself was unfortunate.
Any other discussion on this motion?
I just need clarity on the motion. I missed it. So.
Okay, do you want to repeat that, Hamida?
I was just saying that we can write to the school board to reopen this position to advertise for people to apply again, because we are not satisfied with the choice they made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clarity, okay. Okay. All those in favor of that motion by Hamida and seconded by Cody indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, now we've really extended the time.
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, I'd like to thank you for your service as chairman of the Human Relations Commission for the last 2 years. For the folks in the community, Barry was one of the founders of the Human Relations Commission years ago, and it's a real asset to have you back on this commission and to bring the skill set and experience you do. And you've been a great chair, so thank you on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Well, I think with that encouragement, I will adjourn the meeting. We stand adjourned. Thank you.